I'm a native English speaker, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a good teacher. Although I am, let's go. Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of my accent reduction series where I'm trying to convince you that this common myth that's throughout the English teaching industry, mostly from students, but I'm trying to convince you why accent reduction and the focus on accent reduction more specifically is bullshit, and it's a waste of time, and it's actually harming your English learning process and your English learning progress. And hopefully I've demonstrated this so far when we looked at video 1 of the which accent do you want, right? Which native accent do you want and what do you need it for, right? And you can be better served by using your accent to your advantage. We talked about that in week 1. Last week, we talked about the internal cost, what it's costing you inside your mind, inside your motivation, inside your confidence to focus too much on accent reduction, right? It causes people to feel defeated. It causes you to have the wrong goals, right? And today I want to talk about the external costs, what it's costing you externally, what is costing you in the end, the external effects and the external causes by focusing too much on your accent reduction. And keep in mind, as I've said before, last week and the week before, I don't think accent reduction is useless, right? Go back to last week's lesson if you haven't yet and check that out. It's not a useless activity. It just has to fall in the correct order, right? But today we're talking about external cost, and the question comes, what do I mean by external cost, right? What do I mean by that? And essentially, what I'm talking about is when you're looking for teachers, when you're looking for academies, when you're looking for someone to teach you and work with your English, you're actually looking for where a person is from before their teaching qualifications, right? Let me say that again, and I'll put it on the screen. You're looking at where a person is from before their qualifications or ability. And I've seen this a lot. I've seen this in academies. I've seen this in students that are looking for teachers. You know, they look for, number 1, where a person's from, number 2, price, and that's all. They don't look at the final results. Maybe if you can prepare them for an exam or something like that. But that's backwards too, and we're going to hopefully turn that thinking around today. So the first thing I want to share with you and I want you to know is the same thing that I said in the opening. Being a native speaker does not a good teacher make, says Yoda. Being a native speaker does not a good teacher make, right? We are not necessarily good teachers because we speak English naturally, right? In fact, it could be quite the opposite. We could be poorer teachers because we haven't had to learn this language, right? It's natural to us. And many times when it comes to the mechanics of learning English, meaning the grammar or the conjugations or anything, you know, many young teachers are learning this as they're teaching it. I mean, the technical side of it, right? And so just because we speak naturally doesn't mean that we can communicate what we can do well. That comes with training and that comes with experience. Let's take a look at Albert Einstein. You know, stories go that Albert Einstein was not a good teacher. Why? Because his mind was on such a high level. He knew the stuff almost instinctually, not instinctually, but it kind of seemed that way. He was on a whole other level that he, according to many of his students, he couldn't communicate those advanced concepts to the beginner students, right? And he lost a lot of students. He lost a lot of contact and he couldn't communicate the message well. So he had to rely on some more advanced students to help communicate these ideas to the lower level students, right? So just because someone is on this level doesn't mean they can communicate to you. In fact, many teachers in this industry, they are fresh out of university, looking for, to travel the world, and that's a cool thing. But it doesn't mean that they are well trained, highly qualified teachers. On the other hand, just because someone's a highly trained, qualified teacher doesn't mean they can teach well either. Doesn't mean that they can communicate well for your specific objective, right? That's where your subjectivity comes in, and you have to look at what you're wanting to learn, right? Why you're wanting to learn English. And then you can start looking for the right teacher to get you to the right place. I've seen many qualified teachers who were not native speakers, but they were qualified and very skilled teachers, and they had great, tremendous ideas because they come from a place of language learning as well. They come from a place that is similar to many students, right? And yeah, I get it. Some students, there's a certain allure, there's a certain attractiveness to having a foreign teacher, having a native teacher. But that's not the main thing, right? That should be a bonus. That should be an extra. What are you looking for in a language? Are you looking to grow, or are you looking to have a language partner with a native speaker? Are you looking to look for or learn about different cultures and have different conversations? What exactly are you looking for? And that's what I want to talk about now, is recommendations to help you find exactly the right situation and the right class, the right tutor, the right path for you to advance in your English. So the first thing you should do is figure out exactly what you need, right? Figure out whether you need to prepare for an exam. If you don't need to prepare for an exam, then don't join a class that prepares you for an exam, because a lot of that is exam strategy that doesn't really translate to communication in the real world, right? So if you don't need an exam, unless you want a personal achievement, you want a certificate for your own personal, you need to set a goal. Perfect. Okay, you have a measurable goal. But if you don't join an exam class, because you're going to have some useful language tips, but it's going to be filled mostly with exam preparation. Doesn't really help with fluency. Also, if they don't serve what you need, then ask if they can recommend you a resource or a place or an online platform or some way that can help you with your own personal goals. Not all schools will do this, not all teachers will do this, but if you do find one that does, then that is a solid teacher that cares more about what you need. That's a solid school that cares about what you need. And I have worked in schools that, even though they couldn't serve a student's needs, they helped the student find, and they connected the student with someone that could help them specifically. And I have one more set of recommendations, and this is parents of language learners, right? Parents of teens who are in academy classes, of kids who are in academy classes. Just some things that I've seen through my experience that might help you get more bang for your buck as you're paying for their language lessons, and to create a better environment for your kids and your teens. And the first thing is involve them in the decision making, right? So what do I mean by this? Let your child decide whether they want to study? No, maybe not, right? Because maybe they're lazy. Maybe they just want to go to the park and smoke all day or whatever. Okay, not that. But maybe ask them what they need. Have a brainstorming talk with them. Talk about where they want to do. Talk about what they feel about English, what they think English is. why it's important to you and see if it's important to them. If you do this, take this time, it involves them in the decision making, and it's not just, I have to go to academy because my mom makes me, right? Because I'll tell you, from the insider point of view, that creates for a bad environment for the class, the student, and gives them a bad experience because they don't want to be there, right? But if you involve them in the decision making, then they're a little bit more invested, right? That's not the end all be all, but it's a big tip that you could try out with you and your family. Also, figure out together what they need and want. Do they need a certain exam level? Do they need a certain exam type or name? Like, exams are very brand name, right? We have the Cambridge exams. A lot of people in Europe seek for this holy grail of the Cambridge B2 or C1. And it's the holy grail. They have the market cornered on this. It's not the best exam by far. It's quite a poor exam, actually, if you ask me. So, but many parents want this specific exam for their kids because it's the thing to do, right? Whereas a different exam, like the Trinity exam or some like other less recognized exams, would get the same results as far as maybe universities accepting it, jobs accepting it, visas accepting it. They might get the same results, but they don't have the brand name. They're not the Gucci or they're not the Louis Vuitton, right? But that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for status of, do you have a Cambridge exam or a Trinity exam? No, right? We're looking for the results. What is the result that you want with trying for this exam, right? I've had this with a student of mine. He had the level for the Cambridge exam. He took the exam a couple times. He had more than enough level. We had practice exams, and after practice exams with him, he did fantastically. He entered the exam, he gets nervous, and he didn't pass by like 3 points twice. The first time 5 points, the second time 3 points. And I recommended a different exam to his mother, and she declined it. She wanted the Cambridge brand name exam. Okay, I can't do anything for you. So figure out what you need and why you need it, right? Figure out the result that you want. That's fundamental. And all of this is to not waste their time and your money, giving them more frustration and giving them ultimately a bad taste for English or English academies in their mouth, right? These are just extra recommendations for you as you're looking for the right school or you're looking for the right teacher, right? It all comes down to goals. What's your result? What result do you want? And then find a way to get to that result. That's the bottom line, right? Now let's move on to another organized rhyme. And let's hear different accents from different parts of the world going through I'm a Little Teapot. And for all you teachers, I've actually done this in classes, had my students repeat this rhyme and, recite this rhyme. And I've had them do it in like rap forms or song forms or whatever form that they could creatively come up with. But let's get into it. It goes a little something like this. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out. Let's go, teachers. Let's see what you got.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle, here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out.
Little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle, here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle, here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over, pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is my spout. When I all get steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle, here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me up and pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle, here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle and here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Lift me up and pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle and here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle, here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle and here's my spout. When the tea gets steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me up and pour me out.
So there you have it. Keep teaching, keep learning. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
And now for my next trick, and it's called Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.